Welcome to the Opinionation Podcast, where free speech, opinions, and original thought still matter in America.
Welcome back, everyone. It is I, King Daddy, back from a couple of weeks of vacation. It was the Sacred Queen's birthday week, and we just decided to celebrate all week long. She took a week off work, and we went out and did some fine dining and some shopping and some projects here around the house, and planted some flowers and did all kinds of wonderful things together. Had a really nice time. But we're back and we're ready for action. Now, I'm going to attempt today to do a completely unedited show. I do not want to have to stop, and I do not want to edit. I'm not going to promise you that it's going to work out. I may have to tweak a few things here and there, but my goal is to do this unedited. So I would like to first start off by saying that if you have any comments for us in the future, they are to be sent to opinionnation84@gmail.com. We can also be reached at opinionnation84 at both Twitter and Instagram. You can send long drawn out emails to the email address, and if you just have a little quickie one-liners you want to throw at me, shoot them to Instagram or Twitter, and I promise you I answer each and every one. I'm finally caught up on answering all my emails and all my Twitter comments and everything going on here, so we're back at it full steam ahead. Hopefully we'll be able to be in the studio at least 1 to 2 times a week from here on out until October, when we take another week-long break for my birthday. You know, when you get to be a certain age, as I will be 55 this year, you need a little extra time to celebrate your birthday, because hell, especially with, me being sick and all for the past 2 years, you just never know when it's your fucking last one. So take advantage of every moment that you have, especially during your birthday time, to celebrate and make it as magnificent and as wonderful as it can possibly be. So today, being back for the first time in a while, I want to hit on what is a very touchy subject for many people in this country. And I know that there are people who have their opinions about it, good, bad, or indifferent, but I want to give you mine. As we know, for those of us who watch the news on a regular basis, the United States government has reinstated capital punishment and the death penalty. Now, there are people out there who do not believe in the death penalty. They would rather a person who has raped, molested a child, or committed murder to sit in a prison and be clothed, housed, and fed for the rest of their natural life on our tax dollars, but that is not what I believe. What I believe should happen in a case like this is when a person is found guilty of this crime. Now, before you start screaming, oh my God, but there are so many people who are imprisoned and that are not guilty, and they stay in prison for a long time and finally get let out and exonerated for their crime years later. Granted, that does happen. So let me backtrack and tell you again. For a person who is found guilty beyond any possible reasonable doubt that there ever could be, that they know for a fact that this person did it. They are a career criminal. They have a history of violence. They have a history of sexual assault. They have a history of child molestation. They are just a bad egg. What should happen to them, hear me closely, is not only should they be executed, but they should be taken out behind the courthouse immediately following their trial, and they should be publicly executed on national television so that all the world can see it. Now, there are those out there who are going to say, but our children shouldn't have to watch this. I guarantee you, if our children watch somebody get executed, it is going to be a strong deterrent for criminal activity for them in the future. Let them see it. It is so sickening to me that we have raised such a generation of little pustards that we can't introduce them to the real world. It is these same whiny ass pussies that don't want their children to see something like this that will let them. Well, let me just show you what Glenn Beck posted on Twitter, or not show you, but I'm going to tell you. Photos of children lying on top of a drag queen at Storytime event were allegedly taken down by library after images were called out. So it's okay for our children to lay around on top of a drag queen at a library storytelling event, and you parents out there don't find a goddamn thing wrong with that. But you don't want your children to watch somebody be executed for raping a woman, molesting a child, or murdering another human being. You have some form of warped sense of reality about yourself when you think that way. It's okay for your child to see two mommies kissing each other at the grocery store, or two daddies kissing each other at the Home Depot, or laying on top of a drag queen at the library story time, but it's not okay for them to see a person who is so vile and so nasty and so horrible be executed for the nasty, horrible, vile things that they have done. You have got a warped sense of parenting about yourself. I don't understand it. Everybody should understand and be able to witness consequences for action. It's a sad enough case in the United States of America that they already take 40 to 50% of our paychecks in taxes and use them for things that we don't believe in. One, the housing and the feeding of the criminals, being our tax dollars being used for that is just a tragedy. There is bound to be a better way to handle things in the justice system. And then another thing that really pissed me off while I'm on the roll of taxes now is that goddamn Mueller report. They had these 2 hearings Wednesday, which absolutely accomplished nothing for either side. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican or whatever the fuck you believe in politically. That was a scam of the American tax dollar to hold those hearings and to tie up the government with something stupid like that. Let's get back to governing, because it's appalling enough that we have to pay the high taxes to begin with. Our roads look like shit. Our infrastructure looks like shit. And I know I've podcasted on those before, but we're paying taxes for our schools and our roads and our infrastructure and all those things. And every single one of the things that our tax money is supposed to go to is a shithole. Our public school system is a shithole. It is a breeding ground for criminals. And our tax dollars are funding this. So why would we want to prolong the life of an absolute piece of shit with millions and millions of dollars worth of tax money when a bullet is cheaper? It absolutely costs nothing to tie a rope around somebody's neck and kick them off a platform or a firing squad. Cheapest way I can see it happening. But nobody wants to do it because we have become so anti-political, but yet politically correct. It is a shame at the state of what the government is doing to us with our tax dollars. But it is more of a shame that these people are allowed to sit in a prison for 30, 40, 50 years, ever how long they live, and get 3 meals a day on our dime. Unbelievable. I just have no words to describe how I feel about that absolute travesty. Another serious issue that we have in this country right now is that Congresswoman, the Elian Muslim lady from Minnesota, who has made a statement on a television show where she has said that the real fear America should have is white men, and that white men in this country should be profiled because they are the biggest danger that we have in America. Well, I don't believe that the white men are the biggest danger that we have in America. I don't believe even the Muslims are the biggest danger we have in America. The biggest danger we have in America is the political system. The political system that robs us and steals our money and takes advantage of our goodness and our labor and the thought process that we put into our everyday lives. That's the enemy of America. That's who should be profiled, as our politicians and our government, who are fucking us every single day and taking advantages of us every single day. And a prime example of that is this woman. It's not the fact that she's Muslim that bothers me. I don't give a damn what religion she is or what color she is or whatever. What I have a problem with are the statements that she is publicly and openly making and still allowed to get paid to sit in a United States District congressional seat. And nobody finds anything wrong with that to have her removed. Now, everybody wants to remove Donald Trump from office, which I'm sure they have, their grounds or to do whatever. But their assumption is that he's a racist. Their assumption is that he cohorted with Russia. Their assumption is a lot of things. But this woman takes no assumption. She absolutely went on a television show and said those things. I just watched the video again. She said those things out of her own mouth, that the real threat to America was the white man and they needed to be profiled. They were responsible for most of the violence and killings in America, and we know that's not true. Have you ever watched the morning news? Very seldom do you see a white face pop up when it comes to violence. It's usually a black face. And I'm not saying that to be racist. I'm just saying that because it's a true statement. Now, there are some white guys. As a matter of fact, there was one that was on the news this morning, tattooed on his face and his forehead, who killed his girlfriend. And that motherfucker needs to be taken out behind the courthouse after his trial's over and put to death immediately. I don't care what color he is, but white men in general are not the biggest threat to this country. It's people like her. It's our own government. It's everybody who sits in Congress who wants to waste our tax dollars on stupid shit all over the television, which cost astronomical amounts of money to put on these dog and pony shows. That is the real travesty in America and the real enemy of the American people. It is no particular race. It is no particular person or group of people or religion. It is our own goddamn government. They're the ones who are taking advantage of us and stirring up all the problems. And then here is another problem that we have in America. It's the perversion that we're allowing to be seen publicly and openly. The drag queens, the rampant, open homosexual behavior. And we're allowing our children to take part in this like it's normal. And nobody says a word about it because the other enemy of the people are the sympathizers of this type of behavior. Again, I don't understand it, don't know where it comes from, don't know how it got to be this way. I can remember when I was growing up, let's look more like into my teenage years because that's mostly what I remember about growing up. We didn't really have problems like this. I mean, there were gays around and, there were killings around. But it seems like there just weren't a rampant, what word am I looking for? Disease process of this type of behavior. It was very rare to see. And when it did happen, it was condemned and not condoned. Now, everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon of being politically correct and wanting to make sure that nobody's feelings are hurt and that everybody is taken care of and that everybody is given equal rights and all that bullshit. But nobody wants to take into consideration that we are raising a warped society of really, really whiny, pussified children that are going to grow up to be whiny, pussified adults. And those whiny, pussified adults are going to be the ones who are running this country in the next 10 to 20 years. And we have yet to see the repercussions of what they're going to do to this place. What are they going to do to us? You're going to have drag queens in the streets, nobody carrying guns, criminals everywhere, and people running and leaping across the border because they're open. And everybody thinks that those are wonderful things, and they're not. There has to be a semblance of law and order and decency among people. And when I say decency, I'm not talking about the false sense of decency that religion brings. I mean decency, normal, everyday human decency. And the only way that we can once again have everyday human decency is for the indecent to be stopped in their tracks now. We have to start putting up a fight towards criminal behavior and indecency and injustice toward the things that really need fighting for. We're fighting for the wrong shit. Nobody wants to fight for the right shit anymore because everybody's afraid of hurting somebody else's feelings or getting somebody to attack them. I'm going to use this as an example, and I'm not saying that I condone this behavior. But there was a woman that made the news this morning. She got angry at these two black women at a restaurant, and she called them the N-word. So everybody is demanding that this woman make an apology for calling these ladies the N-word, and not saying that her doing that was right, but if that's how she feels, she can apologize all she fucking wants to, and if she don't mean it, it means nothing. Why should she apologize for how she feels? Are you going to now criminalize every word that comes out of somebody's mouth just because you don't like it? If you don't like the fact that the woman called you the N-word, get up and beat her goddamn ass. Don't call the news and get a press conference and try to get everybody sympathetic to you because you didn't like what the woman said to you. Beat her goddamn ass. Punch her in her fucking face. Whatever happened to taking care of your own business? Do we have to involve the news media every single time somebody does something to hurt our fucking feelings? I don't think so. People say shit all the time that I don't like, and I'm not calling Channel 9 and having them come over here with a microphone and interview me because somebody hurt my feelings or slap my ego upside the head. I take care of my own shit. You don't talk to me that way, I'm not going to put up with it. And if you say that to me again, I'm going to beat your ass. But no, that's not how they do it now. You cry. You whine. You involve the media. You call the police. You know, the police have people killing each other in the middle of the goddamn street. They don't have time to come to the restaurant because somebody called you a goddamn name. You have the freedom of speech. They used it. You didn't like it. Call them a name back. Say something derogatory back to them. Slap her. But instead you call the police. And we have to not only see this story on our local news, but holy shit, this morning it made Good Morning America. And last night it made one of those nightly entertainment shows. I mean, really? Does every single thing out there have to be sensationalized to the point where we know every detail of every little heartbreaking conversation that goes on in a restaurant? I don't want to know that shit. I don't care what that lady said to those people. She was wrong. Shouldn't have said it. Beat her ass. End of conversation. The news media likes to take things and spin it. I was watching a TED Talk. One of the best TED Talks that I've ever seen, and it wasn't but, 20 minutes long. And I don't know how many of you out there that listen to my show, even though you do know that I love professional wrestling. Eric Bischoff did a TED Talk where he was talking about basically the art of selling and being a good guy and a bad guy in wrestling. And one of the things that a wrestler has to do is get somebody to feel something, because thinking's not enough. But if you can get somebody to feel, then you've won them over. And then he went on to say that's exactly what they do in the news media now. Instead of presenting the news and getting you to think about what's going on in your community and your country, they're trying to spin it around so that you feel a certain way about it. And in the process of making you feel for this story, they're sensationalizing the story to the point where you feel like you want to get involved in the story now. And you want to make this story a part of your everyday fodder. And you want to talk about it. You know, some of this shit's not even worth talking about. I mean, you know, I mentioned this on a podcast about two or 3 weeks ago about the guy who came out of the Burger King with a gun in his hand. The police told him to drop it and they shot him. Well, the story no longer was about the man who was inside of a restaurant with a pistol. It was about the police officer shooting him in the parking lot and the people who showed up afterwards to protest the injustice of the police department. Because they chose the part of that story that they wanted to sensationalize the most, and they twisted it and they used it to make people feel a certain way. So now, all of a sudden, the cops have become the bad guy in this particular situation. And I'm not saying that the cops aren't sometimes bad guys and assholes, because they are. A lot of cops, some of the ones I went to high school with, are just douchebags because they were little weenie douchebags in high school, and they became police officers so they could just take out their little weenie douchebag vengeance on people. But that's not the case in every situation. Police officers sometimes have to make split-second decisions, and a man coming out of a restaurant with a gun in his hand is a split-second decision. We had another instance a week ago where another man was killed by the police in the parking lot, but nobody said anything about that because he took somebody's life in the Steak and Shake that was an employee there. But once again, the news media twisted the part of the story that was more beneficial for them and their ratings. Now, I believe this time the twist that they put on it was the correct twist, because they focused on the innocent man who tried to be the hero in the situation and lost his life. And the gunman walked out into the parking lot of the Burger King or the Steak and Shake and lost his life in the process. understandable the way they twisted this, but it's not always the way they do it. They will pick and choose how they want to twist things to suit their rating schedule, not to suit the truth. So there's a lot of things in America that need to be fixed that are done ass fucking backwards. At every turnaround, they're done backwards. And they need to stop. We need to quit letting criminals utilize our tax dollars while they lay around on a cot in prison eating 3 square meals a day. We need to take perversion and put it back in the perversion box where it came from and let it stay there. And we need to make our news accountable for the news and not accountable for sensationalizing stories in the wrong direction. This is King Daddy for the Opinionation Podcast, wishing you a wonderful day and a fabulous weekend. Talk to you next week.